Okay, so I want to talk about my iPhone 13 mini. I absolutely adore my iPhone 13 mini, and it's been my go-to for 5, 6 years at this point. I've had this iPhone 13 mini through having a kid, learning how to rock climb, getting back into skateboarding in my 30s, having another kid, and replacing the battery 3 times, and I haven't wanted to let this thing go. But this thing really actually is finally starting to sort of show its age in terms of its, I don't know, usability, I guess. I'm finding it slowing down a lot more than it used to. It's overheating more frequently, sadly. And as much as I love this tiny phone, it might finally be time to move on from it as my main device. Now, contrary to what a lot of people might think when it comes down to YouTubers and tech people in general, is that just because we review all these things doesn't mean we, swap them as main devices permanently, at least. I've seen people like jerry rig everything and Linus Tech Tips. They might actually hold on to their phone for like 3 or 4 years, as most people honestly should. And I've done the same thing with my 13 mini, despite reviewing all the latest and greatest. I keep going back to my 13 mini based off of just the size alone. As much as I love all those devices, I can't fully detach from the 13 mini. And just a spoiler for this video, while I might be moving on as the 13 mini from my main device, I'm not going to let it go completely because there are still great use cases for this device. But really, if I'm just looking in the sort of area for iPhones, there's a couple options for me, really. There's the iPhone Air, which I've had for a while. I just found the screen a little bit too large. It is still one-handable. It's thin and light. It's an incredible device, but it's still a little bit too big. And what got me a while back is while I was talking about the iPhone Air, actually, a commenter in the comment section on that video, they commented, "I don't know why everybody's forgetting about the 16E. It was a 16E at the time. I don't know why everybody's forgetting about the 16E that's sitting right there." This was on a video where I was talking about changing from my 13 mini to the iPhone Air at least. And it made me think, back then at least the 16E, there's a couple things missing where I didn't want to use it fully. But compared to the iPhone Air at least, this weighs pretty much the same. The 17E weighs the same. A lot of those things missing previously on the 16E has been closed. Those gaps have been closed, and I'll talk about that. But the 17E, if we're forgetting about the thinness of the Air at least, is actually the smallest modern iPhone Apple makes, being that it's a 6.1 inch screen. By comparison, the iPhone 17 Pro is 6.3, the iPhone Air is 6.5. While yes, it's thin and light, 6.5 is still a huge jump from my 13 mini, which is I actually forget how large the screen is. Let me look this up. This is, I have to look it up, I forgot. This is a 5.4 inch screen. So even going to the 17E is a big jump. I will say though, if it wasn't for iOS 26 just tanking my experience on the 13E, I'd probably be able to get away with it for another year and a half, maybe even 2 years. But man, I don't know. iOS 26 just tanked my experience with this device. Now, while the 17E is only 29 grams heavier than my 13 mini, it's still easily one-handable due to the size of this thing alone. Now, I'd be lying if I didn't wish that the 17E wasn't smaller, but this really is the best I'll get if I'm trying to use an iPhone in the modern age. From a build and design standpoint, there is a little bit changed here compared to my 13 mini. Naturally, of course, it's bigger, but I am getting this action button now, which I wasn't really a fan of when they first started launching the action button and stuff, but I actually kind of like it now, just in terms of its added usability. For myself, I only just put this onto the flashlight. I'm basic like that, and it works super well. The only thing I'm really gonna hate is that I can't fidget with the lock switch. I know a lot of people like that, and I used to fidget with this lock switch a ton, which I can no longer do. Other than that, honestly, on the 17E, compared to my 13 mini at least, I really do prefer the sort of matte frosted back on here. Comparatively, there's pretty much no fingerprints on here, which I appreciate. Again, not that I really wipe down my phones all too much, but I just prefer it. In terms of the actual color, I was torn on whether or not I wanted to get the black or the white one, but I did end up going black, and I dig the way it looks. It's clean, it's minimal, just like all their other devices, but I just prefer the black. And finally, again, one of the things that was missing on the 16E are magnets. I had the magnets on my 13 mini. On phones that don't have magnets, I go as far as putting a magnetic sticker on them, so I have magnets. But now this does have built-in MagSafe. Now, considering this does now have MagSafe like my 13 mini, even without Moft sponsoring this portion of today's video, I would already be talking about their products. For me, at least, the two standout accessories I use on the daily are the MagSafe wallet stand and the MagSafe invisible tripod wallet. This year, they've got some sweet upgrades to both, bringing in Apple Find My support. So similarly to how an AirTag functions, you can actually pair and track these pretty much anywhere you go. And while hopefully none of us would lose our wallets, we're better off being able to find them with Find My. And yes, you can even play a sound here to locate them in those hard to find places. That, and you only need to charge these like twice a year, which is pretty sweet. And you can just do that using MagSafe as well. Plus, they're really not that much thicker than the previous versions. Now, while both of these do have the Find My tracking, they kind of serve different purposes. Where sort of the wallet stand, it more leans into sort of a minimal EDC for the everyday user who kind of wants that slim profile wallet, a grip while scrolling socials or, you know, taking a FaceTime call or watching something without really adding all too much bulk. And the invisible tripod wallet, on the other hand, is a more heavy hitter, I'd say, for content creation. This does unfold into a literal tripod, so it ends up being a kind of, I don't know, portable studio or something for catching B-roll. I personally use this a lot when I'm at the gym or climbing, or otherwise it's just something to hold on to for those wider or vlog shots, amongst a chunk of other applications that lets us get all those unique shots we might want to get, whether that be, you know, hanging off something, or again, just as an actual tripod in heart's reach or cramped spaces. Another huge addition here too is that there is an integrated Bluetooth shutter button. For solo creators, this is a solid bonus, being able to trigger the shutter and start recording remotely. It ends up just being straight up useful, I can say. And both of these are still wallets, so they can hold up to 2 cards. If you do want to check out either of these, I will have them linked down below. And again, a huge thanks to Moft for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Naturally, honestly as well, it could go without saying, but iPhones are just built insanely well. Even as their cheapest iPhone, there is no discernible difference in actual build quality between this and the 17 Pro Max. Apple just crushes it, similarly to the Mac Neo that just came out. Their build and design and hand feel on all their products are literally S tier. There's nothing better than how these look and feel. Now, naturally, of course, when I am going to be out and about, you got to talk about the camera, because it only has one camera, and the question is whether or not it's good, and you know, what am I missing from my 13 mini? Now, literally going in my Apple Photos, I can search how many photos I've taken using my ultra-wide lens. Very few. I don't use the ultra-wide lens on my 13 mini that much. So when it comes down to swapping for my 13 mini, I'm really not missing all too much on the camera side, except one thing, sadly, which is cinematic mode. If I'm not mistaken, the ultra-wide camera on my 13 mini provides data for 3D telemetry or something. Is that even a word, telemetry? Because this only has one lens, I don't have cinematic mode on here. And I actually used that quite a good chunk. But the trade-off here is because the lens on here is a 48 megapixel lens. So you do get some solid 2x photos. The Apple website says it's an optical zoom. It's not. It's a digital crop on the 48 megapixels. But you do end up getting some solid photos out of the iPhone 17e because of that. Whereas if you zoomed in 2 times on the 13 mini, this was like, I think, a 12 megapixel camera. So it was far worse in terms of the actual quality if you did want to get a quote unquote telephoto shot. I just appreciate that because, again, while it's not an optical zoom, it is kind of 2 lenses in one, just for the fact that you can use that. Now, truth be told, I'm not that good a photographer. It's something that I've been practicing a lot with my actual physical real cameras. And it's something that, while I'm out and about, I try to practice on my phones as well, just to sort of practice framing and all that. I can say the cameras on the 17e, absolutely incredible, as with a lot of the iPhones, frankly. Pretty much, honestly, any phone coming out nowadays has an incredible camera. It's more so the user versus the camera itself. But the camera on the 17e does a great job. Talking about video side of things, I started this YouTube channel on an iPhone, and I could easily sub in the footage on an iPhone into any one of my videos. I've probably done it on this video, and you might not even notice it because it's just that good of a camera when it comes down to iPhone. If I started a new YouTube channel today, I could literally use the 17e as my main video camera and probably grow that channel without any sort of hiccups. A little bit of a tip for anybody who might be already shooting on an iPhone from a video standpoint, I'd recommend trying to download Blackmagic Camera, because the default application, while perfectly fine, there's no issues using the default camera. It does an incredible job, but Blackmagic Camera is free, and there's so much more functionality in there, which is what I like to use for a lot of the vertical content that I shoot on my Instagram and TikTok and stuff. A lot of the time I'm using an iPhone or an Android with Blackmagic Camera. Overall though, the camera on here, absolutely fantastic. Now, comparatively to my 13 mini, this is a love-hate relationship, being that it's larger, because having a larger display is nice, but having a larger display in hand, I'm not the biggest fan of it. Both these screens are kind of the same, if I'm completely honest. They're both 60 Hertz. I love high refresh displays. I have a review coming up on this wacky BlackBerry looking phone. This thing has a 120 Hertz screen, and it's effectively, I don't know, like half the price maybe of the 17e. And I feel like Apple probably could and should put 120 Hertz, 90 Hertz at least on even the 17e, but really, I'm fine with it. 60 Hertz is perfectly fine. If you're coming from something with a higher refresh rate, you might notice it's a little bit slower in refresh. Other than that, the screen's a screen. I don't really care all too much. I'm not much of a gamer on my phone anyways. It would just be a nice to have. At that point though, I guess you're gonna be, bumping the price. You might as well get the regular iPhone 17. Still, just in terms of functionality, it's bright enough outdoors. Yeah, it's bigger, but 6.1 inches is actually still in my comfort limit in terms of screen size. Literally, if this were 6.2 inches, again, the iPhone 17 Pro is 6.3 inches. Those are too large for my liking. I can definitely get used to them, but 6.1, again, is Apple's smallest current modern iPhone, which is why I'm drawn to this device in the first place. Beyond that, the screen on here looks great. If I'm watching shows or whatever, any type of media, it's fantastic, really. And despite this being a cell phone, this display might still be the best inside your house, funny enough. So yeah, well done on the display despite the 60 hertz. And of course, depending on how bright that is and what you're doing on your phone, that can affect the battery. Now, battery tests are never something I care to do because my usage is gonna be way different from your usage, whoever might be watching this. Frankly, I'm not the heavy user I once was. When it comes down to camera stuff, I'm using my cameras. But the battery on here is fine. It's actually pretty much the same as the iPhone Air, but it is bounds better than my 13 mini. Now, my 13 mini gets me through a day, but only a day. And I am the 17E because of my use case. I can get 2 days without it. I think I usually have like 47% or so when I wake up the next day, and I use it that entire day without really an issue, and I just plug it in before bed. But the battery on here is excellent. USB Type-C, fantastic. It's only USB 2 speeds if you care to transfer files and all that stuff. I don't care about transfer speeds, frankly, on a phone like this, but that is a good bump from Lightning, which is dated at this time, and everything's Type-C. My AirPods are Type-C, my headphones are Type-C. Everything's Type-C, so it's nice to have. Overall, for the battery though, it's a non-issue for me. I charge in my car, I charge on my desk at the office, I charge here. I'm never really without a charger, so yeah, it's fine. While it's not really related to the battery, I hate eSIM. I wish I had physical SIM. I had to swap my physical SIM to an eSIM from my 13 mini. I don't know, I hate it. I'm an old man, I like having my physical SIM cards. And yeah, just to sort of complain a little bit more about iOS 26, Liquid Glass is what sort of tanked my experience with my 13 mini. I think graphically, it might be a little too much for this. It still works for daily, normal, everyday things, but even after replacing the battery for a third time, it's noticeably worse, the battery life on my 13 mini. And iOS 26 just did things to this. I wish I could keep iOS 18 on here. That said, on the 17E, iOS 26 is still fine. You get CarPlay, love that. And an iPhone's still an iPhone, right? Apart from Liquid Glass that I hate, everything else in iOS 26 is really fine. The continuity between Mac, my iPad, the ease of use, the familiarity, I guess I'd say for myself, iOS 26 is fine. And the performance across the board is gonna be stunning. So one of the things that is sort of making me ditch my 13 mini sadly is I think all of these social media apps are updating, and I try not to use socials all too much, but I edit a lot on my mobile devices when it comes down to vertical content. Otherwise, I use an iPad, but there are times I use my phone. And my 13 mini can't even import certain types of footage onto the phone without crashing, sadly, in those applications. It might be a RAM thing, it could be a chipset thing, I don't know. But that doesn't happen on my 17E, which is another reason I did finally decide to grab the 17E. Performance-wise, this thing just crushes. When I export videos, it does incredibly well. While I don't play games too much on my phone, when I do on here, it performs perfectly well. And while not a lot of people will really care all too much, physics is physics. So this phone being bigger gives it a better set of speakers, just naturally physics and size of your device. The speaker on here is fantastic. I'm the guy who listens to music on my phone when I shower type deal, and it's bounds better than my 13 mini. So yeah, I figured I would mention that specifically. And there's probably a million things that I'm missing in terms of the 17E, but that's just my take onto why I'm finally upgrading. I could have got the 17, I could have stuck with the 17 Pro. I have the iPhone Air that I could be using, but frankly, I just prefer smaller devices, and this is as small as it gets on a modern phone. And I'm okay not having all the bells and whistles for my specific use case. The fact that I'm coming from a 5.5-year phone, honestly, any of the iPhones that I would pick up today are gonna be leaps and bounds ahead of this one. And this did its job. Now, like I mentioned, I'm not getting rid of my 13 mini. If you've seen any of my other content, I use a lot of dumb phones or minimalist or more simple devices, whatever the case is. And this is sort of the happy medium at this point. A lot of people recently, instead of, buying these expensive ass minimalist phones, they're actually just picking up old used iPhones because they end up making incredible minimal devices, if you even want to call it that, because things like socials don't work as well. Like I mentioned, I can't really edit on here all too much. The batteries might not work as well, but there is a huge market, it seems, for old used iPhones specifically for that. And some people really just want a small phone. If it can call, it can text, it has a touch screen, it has Apple Music. All those things are still fantastic on the 13 mini. So that's why I'm not getting rid of it. There's gonna be a lot of use cases for me to still use this device. And there might be times where I will have extended periods on my 13 mini. I'm sad to not have this as my main device anymore because I truly have like this irrational attachment to this device. I've made loads of videos where I'd review one of the latest and greatest devices, but I actually do truthfully find myself going back to the 13 mini And I don't think that's going to be the case anymore, sadly. So yeah, that's my take. When you don't upgrade your phone every single year, devices like the 17E make you feel like you're living in the future, end up being an incredibly solid upgrade. But yeah, appreciate you guys watching till the end. Let me know what you guys think about the 17E, or if you think there's a better option for me. I don't know if there's anything small like the 17E in their lineup, but yeah, thanks for watching. Till next time.